Hi, Lady Loves and Low Riders. It's Lady Lowron Lee here, back with part 3 of the video that I'm trying to make about homosexuality and heterosexuality. Um, I talked to you. I'm going to make the videos less than 15 minutes because it's just hard to upload it for me if it's more than 15 minutes. So I'm going to get right to it. Today is my birthday, and I just wanted to say I'm 64 today. And to all of my high school buddies that I'm friends on Facebook with, and all my friends locally, my daughter, my niece, thank you for your wonderful happy birthdays. You make my day. Usually I go away for my birthday, but this year it's a little bit different. So I'm home and I'm doing this video for you. So thank you, God, for keeping me safe and keeping me healthy all these years. I can't believe I'm 64 today. I just can't believe it. I'm still that little girl running around in my mother and father's backyard, playing in the dirt, climbing trees, and so forth. Speaking of climbing trees, I mentioned about homosexuality, that there's a whole group of people that say, oh, she was a tomboy when she was a kid, or guys, young boys wore mom's high heels. So that explains why, as an adult, he or she may be embracing that same-sex lifestyle. But I just said all that to say that I was a tomboy, and I really do not want a woman. Okay, so that's not a reason. Not that you need a reason to explain anything to us, but I really wish people would stop saying that. That's the reason for them embracing certain lifestyles. I talked about Abraham Maslow's pyramid and hierarchy of needs, that the physiological needs is the greatest segment of man's needs, and love and belonging is a little bit higher, but it's definitely not the priority that man has to fulfill these needs. And sleep, eating, sex, all these physical urges that we get without an outside force, these are the physiological needs that are born into us, that are innate with us. So, however, animals have these needs also. Physiological, they need to be safe. They need to have self-actualization, actually. As I said, vying for position in their herds. However, it's not the greatest priority. So we have to deal with these priorities and this physiological need of satisfying this urge or this arousal level that God gave us. We have to treat it more than with instinct. We have to utilize this and embrace this the way we should as human beings. We're not animals. We cannot be led by instinct only. We always say that we're better than animals, and we were actually are supposed to be having dominion over the animals. Therefore, we should not feel like animals and just be motivated by instinct only, okay? So we've talked about all that, and we talked about God's need for want and desire for procreation, for man to procreate, and how you cannot procreate or have or bring forth a child in a same-sex relationship. So our purpose for having sex to begin with is so that we could bring offspring, and God said multiply the earth therein, man and woman. That's what he wanted. That's why he gave us these feelings. And as I said before, had he not made sex feel the way that it does and have the level of arousal that it would, look at the sex industry. Look how much money is made in the sex industry around the world. And it always has been. The sex urge in us, the industries of sex, they have always been not first and foremost, but out front with the greatest money-making ventures invented by man, okay? And we're talking about prostitution here. But I'm just saying, sex has always been important to man because it is a physiological urge that God himself put into us. But we must remember so that we could obey him and procreate. Now, do you think that we would pay that much attention to sex if it didn't feel so good? It would be a moot issue to most of us. It would definitely not be on the front burner in our choices that we're making, to be with mates or otherwise, you know. Sex and the urges, well, the urge is natural, but the gift of the orgasmic arousal levels that we feel, that's a gift from God to those of us who are married. And he ordained marriage, and he wanted us to be married. And it's a gift for obeying and making those babies. Now, we don't have to fill up the house with babies that we can't afford, but God did want us to bring forth children. That's why he gave us the feeling. So I don't want to go over and over and sound redundant, but that's what the beginning of the video was about. And as I said before, we would not pay much attention to sex if it didn't feel like it did. So only an omnipotent, omniscient, and omnipresent God could have come up with that. I mean, that is what we call that is the great mind, okay? He knew we would be finite in our thinking. He knew that we would have our limitations. And, but he just gave us those feelings so that he could sit back and watch us fulfill his command and his desires. And that is what I believe. And we have to remember who God gave us to share this gift with. Now, as I said before, if you are in a same-sex marriage, you deserve the same constitutional rights as anyone else who's married. You should be allowed to enter hospital rooms if your mate is sick. Families should not be allowed to interfere and stop you from being with your mate. If you lose your mate in death, families who are homophobic should not be allowed to come along and steal what you and that mate put together and accrued in your life. I've seen it happen, and it is very, very wrong, and there's no excuse for it, and you should be protected constitutionally. But I'm talking about marriage here, you know. I'm not saying that I did not live with gentlemen that I was not married to, but I was always getting ready to get married, and when the engagement didn't go through, I cut it off, and that was it. Now, that's not an excuse, but that's the way things happen. As they say, it is what it is. It was what it was. But I know God gave me men or man to be with. I'm not going to just let my urges judge my choices or create my choices for me or make my choices for me. So that's what we spoke about in the other videos. Now, finally, I'm going to try to squeeze this in as much as I can. But we were talking about Miles and Milan in Love and Hip Hop Hollywood. Miles was in church crying his eyes out, and I believe those were real tears. And I'm really grateful to Mona Scott Young for bringing this forward the way she did. I was really moved by this episode. He was crying in church. He was really battling and fighting, not just whether he should be in that relationship. That's why he was in and out of that door so much. But also how he was going to tell his loved ones how ostracized he might be as a result of it. Like I said, I believe that those tears were real. And the reason for that battle that you saw on Miles's face is because, as I said before, in Galatians 5:17, the spirit fights the flesh fights the spirit. The spirit is what we should be doing, what God put in us to do what's right, make the right choices, and the flesh is those physiological needs that Abraham Maslow talked about in the hierarchy of man's needs. So the flesh is that urge that we have, but we cannot let the flesh fight the spirit and win. We have to let the spirit fight the flesh and make the right choices when it comes to being with a mate. Loving and belonging and that unity that you have with a mate, I hate to tell you this, but even psychologically speaking, from scientists, people who don't go to church, who don't even believe in God, believe that that urge of belonging and love is not as important as the physiological needs. Okay? And as I said, sleeping, eating, getting rid of body's waste, safety is above that, but the greatest need would be physiological, and sex is definitely one of those needs. And that urge to be satisfied, that orgasmic satisfaction, I'm sorry, that orgasmic feeling and satisfaction is what we strive to overcome and not let it make our choices for us. So as I said, Miles was really, really crying in church, and he was really battling the flesh because deep down inside he kind of knew who he really should be with. That's why he tried to be with Amber, I guess. But if you really let this head think for you and not the other one that we used to talk about all through the years, I think our decisions will be a lot easier. And that's not a judgment call. It's just something to think about. I'm trying to help someone who may have a question as to why they feel the way that they do. Okay, so Miles was crying in church, and he was battling with Milan, what to do, when to come out, and so forth. I just wanted to remind you that hip-hop is very homophobic. And the reason for that is because the toughness that hip-hop exudes, how many tears are on your cheek, the gang lifestyle. You have to remember that hip-hop is comprised of a lot of people who may be brilliant, like Puffy Combs, whose birthday is also today as well as mine. But you've got Jay-Z, you've got many greats in hip-hop that were great businessmen, and they showed their brilliance, and they displayed their brilliance, and they still are. But then you have other icons in hip-hop who say things like light skin is the right skin, and there's that little guy who's always talking about light skin. And I mean, you can't let these people bother you. You cannot let them intimidate you. If you are living a gay lifestyle and you're in hip-hop, they are homophobic. Don't let that bring you down. Consider the source. Everybody can't be Jay-Z. Everybody can't be Biggie Smalls. Everybody can't be Sean Combs. But the least you can do is honor blackness. So you've got a lot of young guys in hip-hop that can't even do that. So if I were gay and I was in hip-hop, I definitely wouldn't let the homophobia of hip-hop affect me in any way. And it definitely wouldn't make my decisions for me, okay? Thank God for people like Snoop Dogg and Tupac, my man, and his brother Mopreem Shakur, J. Cole, Ludacris, people like that who are smart enough to, and Puffy Combs, who are smart enough to honor black beauty. So, like I said, if you're gay and you're worried about the homophobia of hip hop, don't worry about it. Consider the source. Okay? Light skin is the right skin. If you watch Love and Hip Hop New York, you know who I'm talking about, who said that. And I want to applaud L'Oreal. Very light skinned. She could have embraced that foolishness, but she said, I won't have any part in it. Go away. You sound stupid. And you know what? You are stupid. Don't come to me with that light skin is the right skin stuff. That is not what I need. That is not who I am. If that is who you are, you and your wife, go right ahead and be it, but don't expect me to partake in it. So I applaud you, L'Oreal, and I wanted to say that for a long time. So I'm coming to the end of this video. I'm not judging, because we've all sinned and fallen short of the glory of God. We've all misused God's purpose for sex on this earth. You deserve your constitutional rights if you're gay. And I just wanted to say, give you food for thought as some ideas that I came up with as far as the homosexual lifestyle and the heterosexual lifestyle, or versus it. So don't judge, please. I'm not judging. God gave us sex to procreate. You can't procreate in same-sex relationships. God made it feel so good, and it is a gift to married people. If you're married, gay or not, you deserve the same constitutional rights. And I said all that to say that if you have any comments, you can leave them in the bottom. I'm going to cut off before the 15 minutes is up. Remember, He lives. I love you, and that's pretty much it. So anything that you'd like to say, go right ahead and say it. I love you, and I'll see you in the next video.